Good day out there. Yesterday I was thinking about the world as it looks today and the values we all talk about, share info about, complaining about, like the values of egoism, cynicism, the world as a fighting place, the survival of the one who can cheat best, the manipulation is the way, the Machiavellian ideas that has been concerned with how to achieve something, even though it's on behalf of the loss of others. And they see it as a way of life and the only way of life that really works. It's like the animal kingdom. And in that sense, I came to think about monotheism as that radical philosophy of religion that really knew how to tame those human downside values that people attribute to Machiavelli and centuries before him to some of the old philosophies, um, trying to to put life as if it is only a struggle. It's not about compassion, cooperation, or altruism, which is the opposite of egoism in many ways. Altruism means to be able to sacrifice and give to others without wanting anything back from any earthly source. And to do that, you have either to be patriotic, like born and raised to sacrifice yourself, like a secret agent, and James Bond and those soldiers who fight for their country and for their people and lose it all, and they die in the process or get tortured and killed. Or you have to fight for an ideology with the same purpose to win it all, or to let somebody win it all, to protect the leader, to help the ideas get forward into people's mind. Or, in order to become altruistic, you have to believe deeply in a higher compensation, in a creator who gives back and help you regain what you lost. And if you are certain about that, which seems mindlessly crazy in the perspective of many people when they look at someone who is ready to sacrifice everything, even his life, for his cause or religion. That's happening all the time, several places around the earth, or ideology or ideas. They say this person is crazy because on the opposite end of it, it's the egoism and self-preservation that drives us humans and that we are self-centered around. We can't get rid of that as human beings. That seems natural, that whatever we do in life, it's to gain what we are lacking, to advance from where we haven't been, and to try to preserve ourselves. But now comes the tricky part. Would you preserve yourself even if it is on the cost of other people? Would you be ready to take something if it means that hundreds and thousands will die just for you to gain it or get it or become the one who can use that power? I'm sure many people, especially the rich, the powerful, the politicians around the world, and the military leaders and so on, they would say yes. Even us, ordinary people, would most of the time be in doubt if this can give me and my family and my let's say village or just myself a lot of power, a lot of success, a lot of prosperity. Why not? And so what if thousands dies in the mines in Africa or by a virus somewhere, if that means I can sell more of that medicine? So that Machiavellian idea has stuck very deeply in modern times, so that what I'm saying now seems like a revolutionary act. And as we know, telling the truth in time of great deceptions is a revolutionary act. I'm not a revolutionary at all. I'm a scared little person who just like to enjoy looking at these flowers in front of me, but something inside me keeps ticking and begging to look at these issues from the perspective of how monotheism tried to really, what can you say, contain all these troubles that we've been facing in modern time. And they are really, really great and grave. Many people can't see them because we have accepted the notion that Well, if you have to eat your mother for breakfast and your uncle for lunch and your whole family for dinner to survive, that's how life is. That's how animals do it, and we are deeply inside us animals. Here comes um, the two poles I talked about. You have egoism on one side, self preservation, the animalistic drive of nature, and you have the altruism on the very extreme other side. And in between them, you have many people. There's people like tending towards animalism, but they can be compassionate, they can be cooperative to a certain extent. And as I said, some of the big examples is patriotism and sacrificial um, attitude for an ideology or an idea. We see that in the fight going on between the Israelis and the Palestinians, for instance. We saw it in the North and South Korean War. We saw it in the guerrilla fighters in Cambodia, in Latin America, where people believe in a certain way of life so much that they're ready to give themselves up, even their family up for it. And they're ready to persecute others for it. So you have that dualistic nature, I believe, in us humans, that we tend to be animalistic but can also be able to sacrifice our dearest thing, that's our life. Give it all up, we don't need it, as long as we die in the idea that the ideology, the religion, whatever I'm fighting for, whatever people are fighting for, will prevail. And without blood, it won't prevail. So they know there must be a sacrifice. That's in a way showing us that the humans can act differently from that very, very deep animalistic nature. But we see also in the same progress that the leaders of those revolutionary people or the religion or ideology, they tend to be very aware of how to abuse many others in order to stay alive, in order to self-preserve and gain power and suppress everybody who looks through them. It's like if you have somebody who can see, hey, you're sending everybody out to sacrifice themselves, but you're not doing so. Neither are your kids, neither are your closest family. You're giving them high position in society and ordinances and whatever. And while other normal people you seem fit to sacrifice. That's also the animalistic Machiavellian nature speaking in a very concealed and, what can you say, very elaborated, tricky way. And that happens a lot among leaders. And when ordinary people or people who believe in ideologies and ideals, they discover these issues and these sides in their leaders, they turn away from them. So how is monotheism? And when I speak about monotheism, I mean the main three religions, the Mosaic, who are called Israelis and Jews today, and the Jesuits, not the Jewish Jesuits as a small group, but those who follow the Joshua, the Messiah, the Christ, and the Mohammedan monotheistic religion. How did they differ? I have studied some of their history and looked into some of the stories, and I will only give a short story from each. When you go back to the Mosaic history and the history of Moses and Aaron and the followers of the one God, the Israelite God, the Israel who gave himself up to God and became attached to believing in one true God, hidden from us, concealed from our views, but is there acting alive. And whoever believes in that one God truly and without falseness in his or her heart will gain the eternal pleasance of what we, with a general term, call paradise. What you can see there is that these monotheistic religions led from the front line. And when I today listen to the Israeli commanders working on expanding their areas in the Palestinian and Middle East, they lead from the front line. It's like their generals, their colonels, their majors. They do not stand with a binocular on a hill waiting for the soldiers to attack first. They attack from the front, and that's what Moses and Aaron did. They led their people into the desert. They led them out of the problems, but they followed them and stayed with them, shared with them, had the same pain and trouble, maybe bigger and greater pain. When people see that and reflect it, they believe truly that this is something worth following, because this is not somebody who's trying to abuse us. They are just as much in danger as we are, maybe even more. Um, and with the Christian, that's the same. You saw the Christ with his small followers that grew day by day, walking on his feet, sometimes not having enough food, sometimes asking people for shelter or food or whatever is needed. And sometimes people could see that this guy is not being wealthy and rich, and he is not gaining for himself, but he's sacrificing from and with himself. And that's a great inspiration that you can't find anything similar to it in history, especially because the Christ, especially, even though he got mad at the Jewish for what they're doing, and he sometimes criticized them hard in the temple and outside it, he kept that presence of calmness and peace, and giving them parables all along the way and saying it's up to God, not up to me, to judge. And that's very inspirational, that this person is not trying to gain power. And the same you can find in the Mohammedan way. I know many people in the West, English speakers and other languages, they have a certain notion of darkness surrounding the creed of Islam and Muhammad. But if you look at it from the beginning, if you go back and study the history of it, you will find very similar traits in Muhammad as you find in Christ and you find in Moses, meaning he led from the front and he was there on the ground and he was persecuted and followed and nearly killed several times. So, and he was not trying to gain money and become rich on behalf of others. He lived and died in a small two-room house made of clay. So people could not say, well, he became the prophet, now he's the king, and now look at this big mansion he's leaving behind. He didn't leave mansions and he didn't live in ones. He stayed on the floor, sleeping, eating, even though they got more and more rich when they later defeated their enemies. So from these three examples, you see the opposite of what I was introductionally speaking about when we look at the human behavior. There is no egoistic overflow that's taking over here. There's no hidden agenda like we see in many modern times with the generals and ideologies and people who make a revolution or take over the country. I'm sorry to say, but even the American Revolution wasn't all that idealistic at all. That guy, Washington, who keep fleeing from the British from place to place and only won by getting the help of the French in the end and other people who came and helped. Well, he started this war and stayed in it and because he had some interest. He had plantations. He wanted the expansion to the west, and the British couldn't allow that. So he had very personal interest to go into that conflict, and then it grew around him and he couldn't get out of it. So when you compare this guy with these three prophets, you see a difference. And you compare the ideologies of modern time, whether you call them Islamic or you call them Christian or you call them Maoistic or communists. It doesn't matter what they are called, socialist, communist, and so on, fascist. It's about enriching the leader and those around him, gaining the powers and riches of the world, to have them and to owe them and to put them close to themselves. Look at Napoleon, what he did. It's crazy how people show their hidden agendas by letting others sacrifice for them for the glory of the country or the revolution or whatever people want to call the ideology or religion. And so what I'm trying to point out here is that when the monotheistic religions came, they were like a really shocking enlightenment in life for people. That's why many atheists and many people who do not believe and are in doubt, they do not understand why people should leave their homes to follow people like those. Why follow the Moses? Why go in the footsteps of the Christ? Why go after Muhammad, which is for 20 years was a path of certain death and persecution? That's because I believe it's a profound feeling people started getting of a higher sphere and ideal that is possible to practice in real life. It was true compassion. It was values that lifted people up from that small shallowness of themselves, putting them in a bigger um, atmosphere, saying that this world is not the limit of everything. And at the same time, if you look at the three monotheistic religions, they were really radical in containing the very dangerous nature of the humans. Our nature is very dangerous in a way that we are greedy, we are lustful, and we seek power and fulfillment of our egos, even though we will be the last man or woman standing on earth. Everyone who looks deep in himself would admit to him or herself that this is what we are deep inside. Everything else is just tools, means to get by. We get attached to parents as kids. But if you look deeply, we are not just compassionate about those parents. Maybe we even hate them. But deeply, it's because there is some instinct in us that knows we are dependent on them. That's why in the first step we grow and we are not dependent on them anymore. We tend to lack to attend to them unless there are some values telling us we should keep on doing that. And I know that from the three monotheistic religions, there are commands that tells you honor thy parents. Put your wings down for your parents who gets old, and do not say odd and wrong words to them because they become fragile. This is what they say in the Bible, in the New Testament, and the Quran. Why is that? That's because the human nature is so that we do not need them anymore. We get detached from them. They are not important for us. We get attached to somebody else that we need or will fulfill us or we think can fulfill us, like a wife, like a child, like work, a boss, a chef, somebody who is gonna help us grow and get fulfilled in our egoistic nature. So if we look deep into ourselves, we all have it in us. And if we didn't have these inspirational values that shows us the way and tells us there is a God watching, there are angels hovering above, knowing what you're doing, and they're writing everything, and this will be shown like a video or a written book for you in the end of times. There is nothing to run from. Everything is under a live transmission, as you say. And I found this notion very strong, to keep the human mind and human self inside you, the ego, to keep the ego part of the human self aware that you cannot run from the judgment and from the consequences. Do not let your ego take over. Keep attending to your parents in humbleness. Keep giving the poor and the needy, because you have to remember you were poor and needy. Harbor the foreigner when they come by, because you were once foreigners. These are very strong commands, and they have actually influenced societies and civilizational thinking for a few thousand years. So the Israelites were a big inspiration for the world when they had the command for years and years. They were not just persecuted by the Persians and by the Romans and by the Greek and had trouble finding their way. They were also an inspirational force to keep holding on to the knowledge, understanding deep inside that the one God is there watching with his agents of angels and demons and whoever the God sends to watch over people. And we should not let our egos get inflated. And the prophets showed the way to that as well. So containing that ego was one big, major, deep transitional philosophy and pedagogy that the three monotheistic religions had. And because people in our days do not really attend and adhere to the messages of the monotheistic religions anymore, it's like we want them according to what we like and do not like. We want to throw away what's not good for us, and we want to take from it what we find is pleasant. And that doesn't work like that, said the prophets time and over to the Israelites. They were tried more than any other people or humans that has lived on earth by fighting that type of ego inside them. That's what we can see by reading the old Bible, the Old Testament of Moses and the Bible, the books of the prophets. It's like It's like an ongoing, returning fight between a people who see God, understand, stick to the way. Years go by, few years or many, and they return to that inner nature that is implanted in us of being animalistic, egoistic, greedy, lusty, wanting everything for ourselves. And the monotheistic religions tells us time and over this is the true way to self-destruction. Good luck. And where are we today in the human society and the human civilization? It's way underway, those situations where many who has this awareness I'm speaking of here can see that many people just are trying to save themselves, fulfill themselves in life, and really deeply inside, the deep care for others is lacking or very low or not existing. And that's what makes it problematic. The lust is stronger in us than ever. Uh, we want to gain the pleasure in all its forms and shapes, and we do not want it to end, and we are ready to fight for it and pave our way for it and neglect our duties and divorce our wives and do a lot of things for it. Who is speaking? It's the inner ego of lust. It wants something and you're feeding it, and the more you feed it, the more the beasts get hungry. This is what the monotheistic religions is all about. Do not feed the beast. Let's help you tame it. That's why people today do not like the monotheistic laws. If you look at the Jewish laws, my God, you get scared. Those radical, conservative Jewish Orthodox people who are trying to uphold the law in all its detail, we very understandably shake our heads. Even Jews from the same religion shake their heads and say, this is not, we're not able to live up to any of that. And many of the details are not really easy to try to fulfill, but we try to fulfill the main lines. And what we forget in these issues is, okay, it can be extreme, and they have to find moderation for it, and the scholars do so within the one religion. But it's important to give yourself and your ego up to a constraint of rules and actions and what can you say, routines, daily routines, that makes it hard for your ego to take over and the beast to grow. So that's why they always have these restrictions. Do not do this, do not do that, try to do this, repeat that, come listen to the word of God, and so on. You find it in Christianity also in its different shape and forms. You can find some parts of Christian believers who are very, what can you say, modernistic and secular in many ways, saying that we can contain it in ourselves, and I have my inner guidance. I will not do wrong, and I will come back to that philosophy in a minute, because I am partly a believer in it as well. The philosophy of self-containment, the values of the book of nature, and the values that's imprinted in our conscience inside us are enough to guide us. This is what many philosophers from the Enlightened Age believed and wanted societies to build up in the individuals. You are a person who is becoming an individual with responsibilities, and you take care of nature and humans and follow the conscience inside you. You don't need a scary version of the holy book, and you do not need to be practicing all kind of religious what can you say, rituals in order to become good. Now, there is a point to that, but modern life has showed us many humans cannot live up to that. A few can. The few philosophers, wise people, clever people, they don't even need to be very intelligent. They just need to be clear in their heart and minds in order not to do wrong. Otherwise, secularism has failed the human communities in that way, that it didn't really regulate the inner conscience and values of people, keep reminding them of it. It just said, I will make laws, you uphold the law for the benefit of yourself and others. Otherwise, if we catch you, you will be put into prison. But that hasn't worked, and we can see it today, how much smuggling, trafficking, problematic attitude, and and what can you say, actions from human beings that's very, very scary. People are being kidnapped for their kidneys, and kids kidnapped for trafficking, and women misused and abused in large numbers. Companies misusing the benefits of the goods they have from the state, and trying to evade paying their share for the poor people in their society, and so on and so on. Even the poor guy is going and trying to see, can I take something without anybody seeing me? Stealing even from a work in a supermarket, that's a very common thing. As long as the camera doesn't really catch me, what the hell, everybody else is stealing. This is what we have reached to in modern societies, and we are not speaking enough about it, and nobody is directing us in a way to avoid the catastrophe that's lying behind it. Because we are all engulfed by this beast ego. Doesn't matter. As long as I can build a bunker for myself where I can be sheltered from the nukes and viruses in the air and whatever toxic can be out there, I have enough oxygen and food and a few servants and what I need. Well, let people die up there. I will come up and all in good time and survive it all because I got the money. So these people are ready to let the whole world destruct just to survive. This is a beast speaking. This is not a human being. This is not the person that God created to be the what can you say, the ruler and the person who is in charge of life on earth. This was the first command to Adam. And that's why the three monotheistic religions are so radical in their approach and very important, very important focus on how to tame the beast. That's why they put all these rules and the commandments. And once a week at least you have to go and listen to a sermon or a prayer if it's good enough. I agree with many people that these people who are giving the sermons today are a problem themselves. They are sometimes the biggest cheaters and sometimes the biggest wolves in sheep clothes and so on. Demons hiding behind angel faces and smiles and words of God. It's not easy to go there either. I know there's a lot of corruption in monotheism, not blind to that at all. That's why I keep away from participating in any group full time. I'm a very big critic of what's going on in monotheism, but when I look at the radical message in it, the prophetic messages in it, I cannot avoid, and my brain cannot deter from seeing that it has had its big values and can have again. We need it more than we think to regulate and control and tame our deep beasts, our egos that's hiding inside us and taking over. And the second thing it's taming is lust. And lust is today one of the major issues that's bringing addiction, brain damages, body damages, problems with a lot of things in human society, socially, and interpersonal in the families and so on. It's the lust. And when the lust has taken over in us, and none of us can feel like beside being a sinner there, being hit by some of it, because it fulfills something in us, even if it's in the thought. When you look at something people are doing or can do and you say, wow, maybe I should try that out one time. Oh, if I were in his shoes or her shoes, I could go and have that fun that they are having. Why am I not? And so the lust is the second major beastie character that can destruct us from within and makes us destroy who's around us and go mad. A society gone mad in lust is a society that's tearing itself apart from the inside. Philosophy knows that, history knows that, sociologists know that, but we have no effect on it, do we? It's running wild because the beast inside the ordinary people, there are plenty of them, uneducated, arrogant, living day to day, and somebody behind the lines may be feeding these people. Because today you have people of nothing who becomes everything, and people who's just doing like a music video with no content in it, really nothing really important, and earn millions because the beat is is good, or somebody is giving them to promote it. I don't know. I'm partly a believer in hidden societies ruling the world. I don't think it's a propaganda or just what can you say, conspiracy. There are people with influence and knowledge who can rule the world and do something about it, uh, behind the lines among the rich people, and they can destroy the weak, destroy the people on the ground. And that's why monotheism has been a mercy for the weak people. Now, many of the strong people say, oh, come on, uh, a small lusty evening from now and then doesn't hurt. My wife and I doesn't go apart. We stay together. Our kids understand, and so on and so on. That's because this rich guy is so strong in his individual mind, has had the right education or understanding, has the means to get over it, has the attachment from his wife and kids and friends, and they have an understanding that they can control it. And even there, I've read stories about things going wild and going wrong, and a woman saying, I will never be in a threesome again, or I do not like the swinger thing, and I don't want to do the lusty this and that, because it had this and that consequence on my family and our life. So even among the rich, people are getting hurt and hit by the uncontrolled ability to follow the lusty road. I'm not speaking about the physical damage that's happening to millions all over the world just because we want to fulfill this moments of lust that takes over our brains and minds. We cannot see, we cannot think, we cannot derive from it. That's why you have this a prophet who is in the family of Abraham, who was fighting this kind of lust. Uh, I didn't think he was fighting homosexuals because they were like attracted to the same persons. He was fighting a lust that had taken over, because in some parts he's telling them, you people are like blinded by you just want what you have put your mind on as the most lusty. That's taking control of the male and succumbing the strong physical male. If you can, sorry my expression, um, go and take that guy from inside, and you can like make him succumb to the will of your lust, your strength. It's a kind of beastie, egoistic thing that says, I have taken you over. And and it becomes blindness, and so people cannot see anymore what this is doing of trouble and damage. So when the monotheistic religions came and put a restraint on that, and put a restraint on women for their great lust. Now, studies have showed that many women, maybe all women, has the ability to keep their minds turned on for the lust hours and hours without like turning off, while the male has in his brain receptors, um, a switch in a way that turns on when he's on, and when he finishes, well, he turns off. The woman turns off as well, but many women have proved that they can keep going. It's like the switch do not turn off very suddenly, while the male, once he finished, he turns off. He does not look at the woman. That's why some men on the net has been saying 95% of women has nothing to offer the man today, after sex and after you fulfilled your time with them. So when the woman, I do not like that type of quotes, and I believe woman has a lot to give, but that's true because we've turned society into a lustful area of play. It's all about the attraction, the bodies, and the blindness of the lust. And when that takes over, well, what comes after? There are no limits, no family rules, no regulations, no quietness, uh, shape shifting, mentality shiftings. A lot of these issues, psychology and psychiatry are trying to deal with, but with no good, because it will get self-destructive sooner or later. It's not easy to uphold a community who is out of balance and lustful at every moment and second. That's why when you go to Christian communities and you see how in their conservative form, but also or orthodox ways, they try and say uh, you have to turn off your lust and control it. This is what they called the Lutheran education in the old days, or the Catholic way of educating the human to control his inner lust and to hide it. I am here not speaking in detail about the hypocrisy that's hiding behind it. We know that from the name of the rose and from other stories that are true, and from the scandals that's come out from the Vatican and other places about what's happening and has been happening. And that's because if you control that lust to a limit where you imprison it without a way to let it has its share, you will fight an uncontrollable beast. It will take you over like a demon from another side. It will become the hypocrisy. You will do things you're not able to stop. You will like become a slave to that imprisoned what can you say, nature in you. So what I like about the monotheistic religions is they trying to confine and constrain it, but not, what can you say, not kill it. They're not trying to extinguish it or put it out. And that's why some of the practices within some religious communities are not healthy, where they try to restrain themselves totally from any sexual activity and any lust for food or human ego presence. They wanna kill their ego totally, and it lashes back on really many of them because it's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to give it its way of being, both the ego and the lust. Let it have its ways, its flows like a river. You direct it, you constrain it, you don't let it go wild, and you don't let it eat you from within. This is what I believe is radical about the three godly monotheistic religions and their holy books. This is a line I can see in all three of them. Maybe they can't see it themselves because they are so blind, hating each other and their prophets and gods and so on, and they are so blind, wanting just to be the only one who has the truth. But the truth is from God, and when you see that God is constantly trying again and again, say, let me show you the road where you can fulfill your lusts, have your ego, but don't let it become the beast and take over inside you. The third issue I have noticed about radicalism in monotheistic religions is that it controls our lust for power, the greed for power, money, and having more and more. And that's why a famous quote from the Mohammedan hadiths is when a human if a human had a mountain of gold, he would wish to have another, and nothing will satisfy the human inner greed but the dust and the soil. This is a very beautiful quote. This is very beautiful parable, very beautiful saying, and there are many like it. And you find the Christ saying something different, but the same meaning, and you have it in the Old Testament as well. I know many Jewish people like to be rich and has been enriching themselves, but I know that they know, and the rich people among them know, that their true belief is that, and they do that, one third, one third, one third. You have to divide your wealth, not keep it all. And you do not need money that comes from sources of injustice, where you have abused people or hurting them or can hurt them. This is not allowed. That's why usury and what you call the modern time of getting what will we call it, getting money by lending money lending, and the money that comes out of it has been condemned and changed and interpreted and so on and so on. It's the lust. It's the lust taking over. It's the greed of power and money that's taken over. And that's condemned, whether they like it or not, whether they change the text or not. And that's why for many centuries the Christian societies had forbidden that. But then they opened a hole and said only the Jewish are allowed to do it. So we know that from the Merchant of Venice, where the guy who is very Christian goes to lend money from the Jew because they are the only one who can lend him money, but he need a compensation for that that is so big, so huge that the risk is enormous. And if you on top of that, like the Merchant of Venice and that old Shylock, the Jew, he also make the ship sink. There are some hints in that story that he even to hurt that Christian who has been hurting him, made the ship sink, and that's why he become a slave in his debt and so on. And you find it very strong in the Mohammedan laws that nothing that even smells like usury or what can you say, getting money out of people's sweat and toil and tears is allowed. Not even if you trade, what can you say, money for money. It has to be equal. You cannot trade gold for silver with differences. It has to be the equals to each other. You can trade them with equal, but you cannot say, okay, I will borrow you this silver necklace or coin or whatever, and then when you return it back, you return it gold in gold, and that's injustice. Not even the good dates. If you wanna shift 1 kilo of good dates with 1 kilo of bad dates or less quality, the palm tree has dates, those the eatable small food. You cannot trade those without it being equal. This is the Mohammedan law, and it has been very strong in Muslim societies because it directed the attention from usury and using people like that up until modern days. Unfortunately, they've fallen into it by interpretations like the Jewish did and like some of the Christians did. So that's why also the three monotheistic religions have been corrupted from within. These ideals, these ways were to constrain and confine the greed in the human. This has been a big fight for monotheism, to show humans that they are all going back to the earth. That's why, when the Christians lift the cross and they go in old and tired clothes and speak about the holy saints and so on, they say it's because they lived a life in the love of God, not in the love of this life. That means nothing. That's just shadow and dust, and earth to earth, dust to dust, shadow to shadow, and so on. It's like a huge confrontation of the human greed. Give up all your positions and follow in the footstep of Christ, who can do that. Give up half of it. Give up a third of it. Whatever you gain, you earn, you have to give something to others, and you have to find somebody to help with it. You cannot just keep it all by yourself. This is the main idea, so you don't become greedy and think you are something special. And we have in the Jewish texts some of the same ideas of people needing to sacrifice the lamb and giving to God. It's not the God needed. It's to show appreciation. It's to make a feast for the weak and the poor and the needy. It's to help people who couldn't help themselves, or maybe just fall on bad destiny and bad situations. So containing and constraining these three major issues in the humans is a great, radical, and almost forgotten philosophy of the three monotheistic religions. The constraint of the ego, the confinement of the lust, and the containment of the greed inside our minds and hearts. And take notice that the monotheistic religions are not saying they should not exist. Again, it's not an action to kill it. I know some mystics and Sufis and people who try to, follow the roads of the monks and priestess and so on. They try to get rid of everything, and they get overwhelmed again. And we know that from different stories, like the Canterbury stories and Chaucer's small stories about these people who could not and we have it again and again in history, because that's the truth. If you try to kill a part of what's your nature, Well, you can't. It will overwhelm you. It will come back with double force. It's like when we're trying to take over nature now in life. Nature is alive. The earth is a living being. It will react, and will react so strongly that it will put us down sooner or later. This is happening, and I know several philosophers believe in that happening. The same with our egos. It's not about killing it, it's about finding the way for it to grow in a kind of a healthy manner. So you can have your ego, have your pride, have your, what can you say, your ownership, your identity, and feel that you as an individual is doing something special for your ego, for your soul. This is not bad in itself. But today's times, it's all about the ego. Kids in schools, grown-ups at work, it's all about themselves. It's all about who's in my way. It's all about uh, who can I get rid of, and so on. Politicians, it's like a wolf's area. They say that themselves. They say being a politician is like fighting wolves all day long, and foxes and dangerous animals. Who's out there to hurt you? They're just waiting for your minor mistake to bring you down so they can flourish on your behalf. They don't care. Even your fellows in the same revolution or party or what can you say, ideology and a political group. What is this? What have we brought on, and why do we want it like that? And people say, yeah, well, that's how it is. Go and fight and win. If you win, that means you are worthy. Okay, and then this spread more and more, even to schools. Okay, this guy is fat, this girl is ugly, put them down, put them out. They don't deserve it. We deserve it because we were born happily beautiful and amazingly rich or whatever, and with abilities. So is that the earth we want? And you know what happens when we get rid of these so-called weak people and ugly people and people who could not fight into politics? Well, the next step is somebody is trying to do it to us. Even among the beauties, it becomes a competition of who's more beautiful and who's on the lesser end. So that girl who could compare herself to the ugly girls before, now they're rid of them, and now she's the ugly one in the group she's competing with, and she will be pushed out. And so we stay until only the devil is left, as they say. Well, is that what we want? It's the self-destruction that we are going to by letting this ego inflation live on. And it will bring on a reaction from people who are stronger, people who are more hungry. And it's the story of the kingdoms, of the czars, empires, Ottoman sultans, and so on. It's because they became so greedy, so egoistic, they wanted it all, didn't care about the people. Things started happening just around them. They lost. They got killed. They got pushed off the throne. The Russian Revolution wasn't about an ideology. It was about hungry people. That's what Tolstoy was aware of already in the 1870s, from 1870s to 1890s in his writings. It's about people trying to make a living while others have not just plenty, they can throw out food in plenty, and they don't care. So that inequality in economic measures is a part of the world. I do not believe in total equality, and neither does the monotheistic religions, by the way. This is wrong interpretations. If somebody says that God's monotheistic religion wants everybody to be totally equal, that's not it. And the Quran is very clear on that. I think more than the other two books. It says that God has put people in some kind of placements above each other in this earth to try them with what they've got. The one who got less is tried with what he or she got. The one who got more is tried and is looked at, how are you going to do with it? So inequality in gains, in looks, in places, social affairs, abilities, and so on is a natural thing that gives us the dynamic of the world as we see them. But the abuse of them is the forbidden thing in the monotheistic religions. It's like, do not think because you're beautiful or rich that God cannot take it from you. and that you will have it for eternity. Suddenly you will get a Mongol child or grandchild, or you will be pushed off and somebody takes over. A bigger wolf of the Wall Street or whatever they say will come in and will put you down. You go kill yourself. A disaster can happen on the travel and so on. So that's why these monasticists keep reminding people, do good with what you have, because it's about something that's given to you, that's a blessing. Don't abuse it, and don't use it to suppress others. That's forbidden, that's wrong. So that's the way we need to be heading. The values of morals that reminds us of these core issues. Now, the big problem is that the monotheistic religions had this command, but they abused it, of course. Otherwise, they would have been strong today and have been controlling our lives. Priests, imams, rabbis starting abusing that power and making new laws and making new details and constraining more and more, while they maybe themselves didn't constrain themselves. We know that from that Pope in the Middle Ages in Roma. What were they called? The house of Pelagios. I forgot their name. That Pope and his, they were so lustful and so greedy and so egoistic. They became a well-known thing all out the world. They didn't care. They were ruthless, cynical, and it worked for a time, but it brought destruction with it. It brought downturns, not only to themselves, but also to the people around them. And don't come tell me that God is not going to give them a consequence for that, because ask the people who were the victims of these people's greed, the victims of these people's lust, the victims of these people's what can you say, ego. Hundreds and thousands, they will point finger in the day of consequence and say, hey, this is not good. The war came because of what you did, the problems, the hunger, so on. It's what you did. And we suffered. And you tell me that there's no consequence? You lived a good life and hundreds, thousands other they lost it? Is that God? Is that the way it is? Yes, many people say very foolishly. Yeah, that's how it is. It seems like that. But the God gets angry and he say through the monotheistic religion, I'm not like that. I'm giving you the space, the freedom, the will. I'm letting you do things with what you've got. And I know there's a lot of inequality and sickness and problems around you, a hostile earth, hostile humans, animalistic nature, but I will put everything right. There are consequences. There are compensations. Don't you love this idea? Even though it's just an idea, I would rather live with it and die with it than live on the alternative. You know what I mean? This is what the great philosopher, I think Pascal, he said, he said that to a friend who didn't believe in the resurrection and so on. He said, well, I would rather live and die on the notion of an afterlife than the opposite. And if I wake up and there is nothing, well, I've lost nothing. But if I wake up and there is, the injustice people like you will be the losers. The monotheistic religions brought us a radical idea, radical notion. You have to believe it for it to work. But we lack that belief because our lusts are bigger. Like many people who go after lust, they have this problem that, oh, if I all the time has my inner gland, my inner eye, the third eye, looking at me saying God is watching, I'm not going to be able to enjoy the lusts I'm indulging in. And that's where the monotheistic religions say, do it as best as you can and know the consequences, ask for forgiveness and know God's mercy is there. Don't despair, but try to get hold of it, control it, do something about it, find a way to let it go in a good way. That's why the family institution meant so much for the monotheistic religions. I know everybody's speaking on behalf of himself. When I hear a Jewish rabbi, he's only speaking about the Jewish society and the old Bible saying, oh, the family is important. And you hear the Christians saying, oh, we believe the family and no divorce is good and so on. And you listen to the Muslim shaykh and imam, they say the same. But I'm looking at them all at once and saying, you're all repeating the same messages with this different words and different type of culture. The family becomes an important institution, the marriage, the connection, to let the lust out and constrain it, to take on the responsibility of the ego, to contain the greed that can be the biggest destructive force that we've met on earth. When economical experts talk about the cracks in 2029 and 87 and I don't know what, 32 and blah blah blah, and now the 2008, when you go behind it, I've seen some documentaries, very beautiful ones, about the cracks from 2008. Too Huge to Fail with Matt Damon, and that other one that's called Too Big to Fail is a documentary, and there is another one with Kevin Spacey and John Tucky, and several other very good actors. Well, what they showed you in depth is that the greed had taken over. So it led to the disaster. It's again and again one key word, the greed. But we're not able to turn back. We're not able to change it. It keeps going. And now the next crack, the next problem is underway. The rich want to become richer. They have a mountain of gold. They want another. They don't want to share half of it. And if they do, it's just for publicity. And if they truly do, they are very, very, very small. It's like just one in the whole mountain. But the monotheistic religions came and organized that how the rich should pay attributes to the poor and how they should share and how things are not their own. And they keep being reminded of God like that. But falseness also grew in there, and that's what destroyed it all, because it became, everybody could see suddenly, well, what's going on here? Religion has become like madness for the masses, and it's become a way to cheat people out of that justice, to keep the unjust running and ruling, saying to the poor people, be patient, God has a compensation for you, don't do anything now, and leaving the rich unjust people keep doing what they want. And if one opposes them, they kill him, confine him or her, send them away, whatever. So the voice of the people who want to speak the monotheistic religion is very weak. That's why we need a new prophetic message, a resurrection of the Christ. We need a return of the Messiahs. We need a king to come. We need a Muhammadanian Mahdi. We need something that's really true. And people can get the inspiration back, somebody who can't be killed and who can speak the truth and who can show people the way again to control the greed, the lust, the ego. This is what I was thinking about yesterday. Now I've said it out in the void, and maybe, hopefully, one day, one or two persons who find this will have happiness and understanding out of it, inspiration out of it, because it's radically strong, special, and it worked. But we wanted to get rid of it because it got corrupt. But we need it. We need it more than ever, because we can't keep running like this. People eating each other, hurting each other, greed taking over everywhere. Only me, only me, only me. Yeah. Have a good day.